Hey guys, it's Lisa and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to make hang tags because I need to make lots of them for my store, and so I've been talking about doing these and decided to do a video just on making hang tags. And that way, if you're intimidated by doing them, you'll see how easy they are and how you can make them out of so many things. So you really don't have to buy anything to make these. And I'm thinking that they're adding so much to the items that I'm putting in my store that I really feel like, especially around the holidays, that it'll make them sell better because it just makes them look more giftable. And my first plan was to put the price directly on them, but now I'm starting to think that some people may want to keep the hang tags, and so I'm just going to put a little sticker and put it on the back, put the price on the back of the hang tag. Here I'm just taking a piece of thin cardboard that I've cut into a rectangular shape. And you can do these any shape you want. I've made them square. I've just torn them where there's really not any shape at all. I've used a hang tag and covered it. And I've cut these shaped like a hang tag with the V at the top. But this one I'm just going to do in just a regular rectangle. And I've covered it with book pages on both sides because the color of my cardboard obviously wasn't going to work. So I just cover it, and I'm using just regular glue sticks to cover it. And now I'm taking my ink pad and just brushing it along the edges to darken the edges because I want to add some contrast here. And then with each layer that I'm adding, I'm also, some of those layers I'm going to add some contrast to. Now this is just a tissue wrap that you put in a gift bag, and I've coffee stained this very lightly, and I use this a lot, and I want to use it here to layer some color onto this. So I just tore a little piece, a little smaller than my first layer, and now I'm just going to use that glue stick and glue that on. Now this is purple, but it's going to dry clear, and it doesn't take it long at all to dry clear. I have a hard time finding glue sticks that are not colored, and I know I could get the craft ones, but I just run to Walmart or the Dollar General and grab some, and they always seem to be purple. So I'm just gluing this here, and I just keep tearing it until I get the size that I want. I'm doing that on the front and the back because my tags, I want them to look good from both sides. Now you could just keep one side solid and you wouldn't have to do that at all. And you could just put your sticker on the back on your solid side, or if you wanted to use your hang tags as price tags, then you could write directly on it. But like I said, I just want to keep this so that if someone decides to buy my item as a gift and they want to leave the tag on, then obviously they don't have to have the price on there. So sometimes I glue my layers on and I decide that maybe I would rather put black edges around it, and this is one instance where maybe I should have, but I still like the look that it gives. And I'm just kind of layering up squares. Now I like with my last layer to put somewhat of a solid finish on it. That way I can stamp, and that stamp is going to show up well. And I have this little dragonfly that I just really like, and I think this little dragonfly came from a set of clear stamps that I got at the Dollar not at the Dollar General, at the Dollar Tree. So there are a few clear stamp sets that they have that I really like, and this was one of them. And I use this dragonfly a lot. I'm trying to somewhat theme my tags so that when I put a tag on an item, it matches the item that I'm putting it on, so that the colors coordinate, or maybe the subject coordinates. So in this one, I just put a dragonfly on one side, but then I decided to make it fall for the other. So this is just a little image from a napkin, and I've just cut that out and I'm layering it over the top of this one. And it's a little harder to tell with these until that glue dries because that purple is kind of showing through, but I'll show you what they look like when they're dry as well. And now for my string, I just rip up pieces of fabric. Generally, this is just a piece of tea towel that I ripped up and tied. So I just either tie that on or stick the loop in and pull the ends through the loop. You could do that either way. And sometimes I'll layer them up and then I punch my hole, and sometimes I punch my hole, and then as I layer them up, I don't have as much to punch through. So this is some Chinese calligraphy paper. To me, it looks, and it's coffee stain, but to me it looks like what a coffee filter would look like if it was coffee stained, and it kind of has the same texture. So, so if you don't have any calligraphy paper or Chinese calligraphy paper, then just use a coffee filter, and you don't even have to really stain your coffee filter because you can just use one that you've brewed your coffee from that morning. So, and they don't take long to dry at all. But you can use anything, and in like food packaging boxes, you can cut those up for cardboard. You can cut greeting cards up. You can save actually price tags if they're large enough off items that you bought and use that as a base because we're going to be covering it anyway. So the idea here, I think, is to use what you have on hand. And if you have some cardstock and items that are actually for scrapbooking, then that's fine. That just adds more of a decorative touch. But if you don't have, you can cut images and things like that from greeting cards. So I love that these tags aren't really costing anything. Some of you may want to draw these out and cut them more evenly. I don't like that look myself, and so I would rather tear. And if I want it maybe not torn quite as roughly, then I just use my ruler and it tears a lot better. This particular paper is really hard to tear though. So I'm just layering this on top of that cardstock. So this one's going to be a pretty sturdy tag. And now I'm just adding some roses from this roll of Tim Holtz decoupage paper. And again, I'm tearing that out because I don't like those sharp edges. I just kind of want to blend that in. And I like the tags having kind of a junky look to them, I guess is what I would call it. Some might call it primitive. I think these are just kind of just a really rough tag, and I think that's part of their charm. And these you can just use however you want to use them. You could put them on an item maybe that you handmade for someone as a gift, or you could use them to price your items, or like I am, you could use them for both pricing and decorative touch. And like I said, at first when I put them on, I started just writing the price directly onto the tag, but then I decided that what if someone wants to leave that tag on because they're giving it as a gift, but they don't want that price on there. So I just in the end decided to just use some little stickers and put the price on the back with a sticker so that if they wanted to, they could remove that. But I think what makes these tags look so neat is the layering and stamping. To me, those just add such a really neat touch to them. And like I said, I love that the Dollar Tree is carrying these stamps now, so they're small enough that they make really good hang tag stamps. Now you could put the square here, or the rectangle here, and then go a little bit smaller with a rectangle, and then a little bit smaller, and put it neatly on there. I'm choosing on this one, and I do that a lot, but I'm choosing on this one to just kind of stagger it and just give it more of a maybe a random look. But I want to put the paper on top. I want it to use a paper that will show up, that my stamp will show up on. So that's why I'm using the lighter here on top. And then I'm using that same stamp because, like I said, I'm making front and back where they look good. And you wouldn't have to do that at all, as long as you're not using some sort of cardboard that needs to be covered. Then you could just leave your backs plain easily, but I just wanted mine from both sides to look good, and it takes so little time that I just figured I may as well do both sides. And now, because I decided that this white around the edges needed a little bit of work, I'm just taking some of my script stamp, and it really doesn't matter what kind you use here, and just adding some script randomly on the back. Some of you may think that these tags aren't worth the trouble, but like I said before, my sister and I worked on some, and we had easily 100 done in a day, and that was while we were working and checking out people, and so they're really not that time consuming. And then it gives you a chance to use up some of your decoupage paper that you had left over, but it isn't actually big enough for a project. So it's very good for scraps. And then you can use bits of lace or torn fabric or jute twine, whatever you want to use as your string. And I'm just using a regular hole punch. I know they make the hole punch that makes a smaller hole for tags, but I'm not even going to bother with that because I kind of want my hole a little larger so that I can put my torn fabric in it instead of just a little string. And I think so far, more often than not, I've used some coffee stained tea towel torn into strips. I think I'm liking that look about as good as anything that I've used. So now I have this piece of cardboard. It's just a vintage piece of cardboard, and I think some old paper doilies came in it. And I'm layering some lighter colored cardstock over the top of that one, and there I've just torn those edges using a ruler. And now I'm putting some of that same decoupage paper on this, but just using a different colored rose that coordinates with this paper. And putting that white behind there made that show up a lot better. And now, since my back side is just regular cardboard, then I'm just decoupaging this paper right over that because I feel like that it will show up well enough with this. So I'm just using a different part of the paper, but it doesn't have so much of that color of rose, but it's got a little bit of that color in the rose. So I'm just kind of coordinating that on the other side. And then I just tear the remaining paper off. And if you tear against that cardboard, it's kind of like tearing against the ruler. It'll, for the most part, tear pretty well. And it's okay if it's a little rough because that's kind of what I'm going for here. And then I'm layering some, I think this is coffee stained parchment paper. And it kind of has a wrinkled look, which I really like. And I just tore a little bit of that and put it over the top and then stamped a rose on the top of that. And then this one is ready for the string. As you can see, these don't take long at all. And you can use so many things for it. You could use newspaper, book pages. There's just really just about anything that you want to use. And I'm just stamping some roses there in the corner just to add a little something. And now I'm punching my hole so that I can add my string. And I think this one has a little bit more shabby chic look to it than the others. And here I'm using just a little strip of cardboard that comes, I know you've seen these that come in the front of, attached to the front of a notebook. And so I'm just kind of using that as my pattern here and my base. And I just want this one to be more square, so I'm wrapping it in scrapbook paper. And when I do that, all I do is put glue on both sides and just wrap it in that, leaving me some excess around all the edges so that I have enough to hold on to rip the excess off. So like I said, I'm just gluing that on, and then I just rip against that cardboard, and it tears pretty well enough to where it has the organic look that I'm looking for, because you could easily just cut it with scissors or cut it with a paper cutter, but I prefer the torn look. And then especially when I take my ink pad and run that torn look or torn edge across my ink pad, and I really like the look that gives. Now you could buy distress ink for this, but and if you wanted it to be really faint, then you might want to do that. But I like the look that I get from running the ink pad down it, and if you don't want it as dark, use a brown ink pad. But I think these tags look really good when you do that with each layer, because it just adds so much contrast. Sometimes I want them to be a little more natural looking, but for the most part, adding some contrast really helps. Now, I'm new to making these tags. I mean, I've made them before, but I haven't made them regularly, and I haven't just really tried to create when I'm making them. So I'm learning this also. But I think it's really fun, and I think the thing about these is anyone can do them. I think even a child can do them, but it just gives you a chance to create and not really put limit on yourself and not put too much pressure on yourself. I like to just create a color scheme and just kind of work my colors to fit that color scheme. And I like to make both sides go together well, but they don't have to be exactly the same. Sometimes I make them pretty close to the same, but for the most part, just coordinating those colors is the main thing. And like I said, there's really not any rules on these, so you don't even have to do them like I'm doing them. If you want to just use a lot of colors, then that's fine, or just use something more simple, black and white, then that's fine. If you want to make all yours farmhouse, or and here I'm noticing that I should have added some ink around the edges, so I'll pop that off and I'll just re-glue it, because it was worth pulling that off to add some contrast here. I think the best thing to save here for these hang tags is actual hang tags from your clothing or whatever. And I know I mentioned that before, but some of those tags are really good, and some items like bedding and items like that have really good hang tags. So even if you don't like the look of a hang tag, but you just like that it's good and sturdy, then you can cover it. And I'm going to be saving a lot of items like that. And like I said, here I am just layering these up. I generally like to add a few layers, because I feel like those layers really add a lot to this. And for those of you who are perfectionists, this won't work for you at all, because this is just going to look like junk to you. But I'm definitely not that person, because I think the more rustic, the better. And I guess that's lucky for me, because it makes these much easier and quicker. So now that I've got this one layered up, then I'm going to just add a little stamp to the center of it, and it'll be finished. And I'm just loving using this little dragonfly, so I'm going to be adding that to this one. Now I really like the color scheme on this one. I like the lighter blue with that beige and white. And then the string for this one, being that tea towel, is also going to be really pretty. And I think that just using a rustic fabric really does look good on these. And I've used some laces also. You don't have to use actual lace ribbon because that's not something that is inexpensive at all if you have to buy those new. So just take an old lace curtain panel and cut you some strips, and to me that looks better than actually using a lace piece of trim, because it gives it more of a wispy look, and I think it just looks a lot better to me. So here I am taking some more of that cardboard that I took off the front of that notebook, and I'm covering it with scrapbook paper. And then once I got that covered, then I took my stamp pad and ran it around the edges to distress those edges. And now I've taken some more scrapbook paper and I'm tearing that and adding some of the ink around the edges of it also, and then I'll layer that on the top. And again, here is that color scheme that I like so well, and because this scrapbook paper on the bottom has kind of a nautical theme, then this is kind of nautical colors, I think. And I know that I'm placing this one very random, but that's what I'm going for. I don't want it to be neat. I want it to be more of a random look. And there I am distressing the edges of my next layer on the back. So I think you guys have seen enough of these to know how easy they are and to give you some ideas on some items that you could use. So now I'm just going to show you some pictures of ones that I've already finished. And I hope I've not tired you guys of these hang tags. I know that I do them a lot lately, but you have my sister to thank for that, because I was working on some scrapbooking, or we were working on some scrapbooking, and I was doing one, actually a memory book for my mom is what got me working on that, and she suggested that we do these tags, and I really did think that that was a really good idea. And while I have the time here, I want to thank all of you guys for all your support and encouraging words. You just don't know how blessed I feel to have so many wonderful people to support me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in the next. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great evening, and God bless you and your family.